Hello, it has been a while, more than a while. Just move that out of the way. Right, so I was rummaging through my box of things that I have made in the past, and I came across this little notebook which I had made a couple of years now probably, and I thought I would revisit it as a project. I only made the one of these because that's all the stuff that I had at the time, but I thought I'd revisit it, revamp it a little bit for my current sort of themes, which are hedging towards the botanicals and sort of look, wildflowers, that sort of thing. But basically what this is made of is this is made from an envelope which happens to open on the short side. It is small, it's looking at it now I would say postcard size, so it's just over 6 inches long by just over 4¼ inches wide. For your millimetre folks, that's 160 by 110, not including the flappy bit. I got them on one of those cheap websites a few years back, and I still have a bundle of them, so it might be worth my while sitting down on a rainy day having a bit of a mass make. So yeah, what we'll do is I'll just show you what I've come up with in how I'm going to make more of these that suit my current style. So let's pop that little guy over there. Right, as you know, I always keep all of my bits and pieces from all of the books that I use, so that if I need to make something quick or add a little embellishment somewhere, I've always got this kind of stuff to hand. And when it's small pieces that you need, it's great to have those ready. So yeah, good old messy mat. Really does need, I really do need a new one. Okay, so here we are. Here is the basic unadorned plain envelope. As I say, they're mass produced, they're all the same. As you can see, they've got all of that same marking, although the colour of the paper, the tone of the paper does change a little bit. The overall pattern that's printed on there doesn't. Okay, so sorry for all the flippies. The first thing I did was, as I wanted this to stay as an open envelope here, the first thing I decided to do was I decided to cover that flap. And to do that, it was quite a straightforward thing. I just took a scrap of the paper with the pattern on it, cut it to be exactly that size, and stuck it onto there with quite an overhang, so that I could come in later with my scissors and trim it to fit. Okay. It just adds that element of rigidity, I suppose, to it, but also the idea that, oh, there's maybe something in there that I should look at. It doesn't go all the way down, this liner, but the one thing I would suggest you do is you do make sure you put glue right to the edge of that, so that if anything goes in there, it will come out without getting stuck behind that behind that lining. So that's that. Next thing, I gave that a jolly good crease, and as I say, I trimmed it, and then I used the obligatory distressing around the edges so that it just looks well worn and well used. So that's that. Okay, I'm going to put my fabulous distressing ink up there. So then I'm folding it in half. This gives me that really nice, I think it's a lovely size, it's a beautiful size format for making a little pocket notebook with. So the next thing we need to consider is the decoration on the front. So I have got a selection of remnants here, which I kind of pre-trimmed knowing that I was going to do this video, so that I can just sort of showcase some of the covers that I might use. Let's just pop those to one side for a minute. Okay, so anything that fits on there would look rather nice, especially something with a bit of colour to it, a bit of interest. All right. So the one I'm going to actually use is, I'm going to use this one now because I've already set up a few things in advance for that. Just to say that when you're using some of these botanical type books, they will have the numbers, you know, the ID numbers, because at the bottom of the page it will usually tell you what plant it is and things like that. I mean, if you don't mind those numbers, I don't mind one way or the other. You know, sometimes they look okay, and other times they maybe aren't in such a lovely position. But what you can do, if you want to, is using something like, you know, my favourite, I use this all the time. It's a text stamp which just seems to have a very lovely botanical sense to it. There's that taste of botanical to it. You can just maybe disguise or camouflage that number just by stamping something over the top of it. So I think you'll agree that you can't probably see that number now. It's disappeared, and that does add that element. It also, I think, it also gives a bit of interest where there is a space, so where there's a big gap, a big empty space. So again, look, that number's now hidden, but then there's that element that looks quite interesting there. And let's just add a bit across the top here. Yeah, you could go wild and put it in all sorts of directions, but I think that's changed it up a bit, made it look a bit more interesting, and distracted your eye from those numbers. Okay, so put that to one side because it is going to be slightly wet. I don't want to get black ink everywhere. So as I say, I don't mind the numbers on there, but I have done the distressy thing, and I have chomped the corners round. So I think that'll look quite nice. Now on the original one, I did actually stitch around the edge, but you don't have to do that. I think it's quite standalone without the stitching. So just pop that to one side for a minute. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you how I made the sort of little buckle, interest, is it, that goes around the bottom of the card. With something like this, I have chosen this is the one I'm going to be using because it does bring out that blue element. And again, I've used that stamp, and this is just a piece of card on this one. That is obviously just the very plain card with the plain buckle. and this one is obviously, it's a brown one. They you know, they'd all work, wouldn't they? Because this brown one would work with that brown. But I've chosen the blue because I think it just highlights the blue of the flower. Could of course use ribbon. This is what do they call it? Petersham. It's not strictly ribbon. It's more of it's a stronger woven element. I get it from my local haberdashers, and that will just be attached on there. If I was using it, that is on there with the buckle. Which again, as I say, I think it just adds a little bit of interest. So I'm going to use that one. So the buckles, it's another die cut that I have, and every now and then when I'm feeling in the mood, I will sit and, using up scraps, I will just cut out some buckles ready for that moment when I need that kind of embellishment. Right. So I've stamped on this piece of card. I've also distressed the edges. And what I'm going to do next is, to make life a little bit easier, I'm going to use a little bit of double-sided tape on the back of there. I'm going to position this. I'm going to line this. I can see these lines on my messy mat, you'd be surprised. I'm just going to line that up on there so that I get this on fairly straight. I'm going to marry up with one of the lines on there. So I'm going to pop that down on there, flatten it out. And for some reason, I always think that when you're adding this kind of element, I really prefer, rather than cutting it off, I rather prefer to fold it over. I don't know, that's my preference, and it's up to you. You can just cut it off, I suppose. Right, because this is already secured on the front, I just want to tuck this in, so I'll add a little bit of glue on there, a little bit of glue on there. Okay. Then, using the big guns, I'm just going to add a reasonable amount of glue on the back of this feature, so that I can then adhere it well to what is the front of this this little notebook. There we are, position, flatten, and there we are. Not too shabby, is it? Right, so the next thing that you could do, if you wanted to, was you could line the inside. As it happens, this is the remnant of that, so it kind of, you know, this would kind of work, wouldn't it? Measure it so that it's the same size and stick that on there, but just for simplicity today I'm not going to do a lined one. I think it's you know, it makes it extra special, but it isn't necessary every time to embellish everything. Right, so the whole idea of it was this is a little notebook. So what we need to put in now is we need to put a little signature in. So a signature is the word to describe any number of, a smaller number of pages that go into a book, which are then stitched into a book or a booklet like that. So I've used 2 pieces of paper. I folded the paper in half first, then I've cut it to the size that I need and rounded the edges. What I did next was I got my ruler and I measured 1 centimetre, also 10mm down from the top, and then I moved this down so that I could measure 10mm up from the bottom, and then just by eye I have judged the middle, so somewhere between 8 and 0. Clearly the middle is 4, and I've just marked 4 holes, 4 dots there. I'm going to place that firmly in the middle of the notebook and make sure it's tucked right in to that crease. Now with my fingers behind it and very carefully I am going to poke a hole through there, okay, keeping it all firmly together. I'm then going to poke a hole through there, and without making too many moves, making sure that we're still lined up here, I'm going to poke the final hole in there, and you'll see those holes, if you've got everything lined up nicely, will come out pretty much on the spine. Okay. If you want to see a longer video on how to stitch a signature into a book, then I will do that, but I'm conscious of the fact that this little tutorial is probably going to be long enough as it is, so I'm just going to quickly do my stitching in of this tiny signature into this little notebook, just so that we can complete it. And then, as I say, if you wanted to know more about adding a signature using the sewn in method, gladly do it on another video. Right. Now sometimes people like to have this on the outside, some people, so you know the stitchings would come out there. Some people like to have it on the inside, some people like to cut them off well short, put a bow, whatever. As you can see, what I like to do is I always like to make it more of a feature, a little extra thing on there. So having used this navy blue, what I propose is I use this, it's not the same one, is it that one? It's good enough. And this very small circle punch, which is probably going to make a dreadful noise. It's quite a clunker, this one. Oh, there we go. And I would clunk out 4. You say 4? Why 4? Well, because I have one either side of the string. So I've got 2 strings, I'm going to need 4. There we are. So there's the 4. And this piece, this is treasure again. Can you imagine that stitched on somewhere with some, yeah. So that goes in my treasure box. Okay. Taking these, let's just highlight that on there because that's green on green, isn't it? So you've got these dangly bits. So take 2 of those, some glue, and you can either push it so that there is no string below it, or you can have it so that the string's still poking out. Either way, just makes gives it an added feature, I think, anyway. So there's that one. Put an extra little bit of glue on the back of the string, because what we're going to do next is we're going to take the second one and we're going to squeeze it onto there. Squeeze it onto there. I mean, you could, of course, if you've got some very small beads, nice beads, you could do the same thing. But as I'm a massive fan of using up scraps, when you've gone to do something like cutting out this buckle, there's going to be some scraps. Use the same card. That's what I've done. Equally, you could use cutouts of some of the flowers. You could, anything you like there really. And because I'm looking at those thinking they're a little bit plain, I'm going to grab my trusty wordy stamp again, and I'm just going to stamp on there, turn them over if they'll go over. Come along guys, there we are, and stamp on there. There, just to finish that off. I think when they're dry, which they won't be for a little while yet, when they're dry I will go round with the doodah, what's it called, distressing ink. So there we are. So there's a little notebook, and of course you've got this little pocket here which could house a journaling card, something like that, because that is obviously still a pocket. Okay, so that's that. There we are. So journey on the messy mat again, using a very simple envelope that has the opening on the short side, and a few scraps from my Oxford Botanical illustrated something or other. Can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, so I think that's my original from a couple of years ago. This is my revamped version. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you found that of use. And obviously I'd like you to come back again another day to see more creations from the messy mat, because yeah, you deserve it. Thanks ever so much. It'd be nice if you leave comments. I'll always get back to you if there's any comments. Like, subscribe, share, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. Okay, bye now.